Hey, you're hanging out in the Link Up Lounge. I'm Tiffany Mason.
And I'm Donna Ruppel. Around here, we believe success isn't just about what you know, it's about who you link up with. This is your lounge for turning one link into endless opportunities.
Donna, it blows my mind that the two of us have over 30 years of combined networking experience.
I know! We've built businesses, expanded networks, and created unstoppable momentum, all through the power of strategic connections.
AKA networking. And now we're here to guide you to do the same, starting today.
So let's dive in, connect, and start making moves you didn't even know were possible. Welcome back to the Link Up Lounge. I'm Donna Ruppel, your Nocatee real estate expert, and I'm here with my co-host, Tiffany Mason of Virtually You, the boutique podcast management agency.
That's right. This is your lounge for turning one link into endless opportunities. And today we're talking about how to work a room with confidence. Because walking into a networking event can feel very intimidating, especially when everyone else seems to know exactly where to stand, who to talk to, and what to say. But confidence isn't about being the loudest person in the room. I know you may think I think otherwise because I am a loud personality. But it's about entering with a plan, starting a conversation naturally, and knowing how to move through the room without feeling awkward. So I think one of the biggest misconceptions about confidence is that you're either born with it or you're not.
Yeah, totally. Everybody thinks that.
People look at highly extroverted networkers and assume that they're naturally gifted at walking into a room and talking to anyone. Then they compare themselves and immediately feel behind. The truth is that confidence isn't a personality trait. It's a skill. It can be learned. Most confident networkers weren't born that way. They've simply walked into enough rooms, started enough conversations, and survived enough awkward moments to realize they'll be okay. I will never forget walking in a networking event for Texas Roadhouse. And my husband was like, okay, you're going to say the part that I normally say. And I was like, oh my God, my heart was racing. Now, I consider myself to be a fairly confident person. But in that moment, I was like, oh my gosh. So even if you're born with confidence, it can wane if you have to introduce yourself. And here's something else. Success at an event doesn't mean meeting everyone in the room. Sometimes 3 meaningful conversations are more valuable than 30 introductions. I know we've talked many times about quality over quantity.
Yeah, I think people also put way too much pressure on those first few minutes after they arrive. They walk in wondering where to go. Do they check in? Sometimes you have to check in, who they're going to talk to, whether they're going to walk up to a group and interrupt them, or if they're going to look out of place standing in the corner. But most people in the room are having those exact same thoughts. And once you realize that everyone is focused on themselves, everyone is trying to navigate this too, and they're not standing there judging you, the room starts to feel a lot less intimidating.
Have you ever heard the saying, what other people think of you is none of your business?
Yeah, it's great. Yeah.
So think about that as you enter the room, you guys.
Right? I mean, I think anytime I show up, you guys have heard me say this before. I like to take my life raft, right? So anytime I go into a new networking opportunity where I'm not going to know anybody, I love to go with somebody. Not that I'm going to hang out and talk to them the whole time, but it's sort of like my life raft. And it's like my little safety net. And I like knowing I have that. When I have to go into a room by myself and I don't have that, I definitely get a little nervous, like, whoa. And I always think to myself, I definitely check myself. And I think, why are you nervous right now? Like, you're just going to make friends. And that somewhat helps me. But I do believe that confidence starts before you ever walk through the door. One of the easiest ways to feel uncomfortable at an event is showing up with no plan whatsoever. And that doesn't mean creating like an agenda or like a task list or anything crazy. Okay. It simply means just giving yourself a purpose. Like maybe your goal is to meet 3 new people. Maybe it's reconnecting with somebody you've met before. I mean, there are events that I go to and I know somebody's going to be there that maybe I touched contact with them at a previous event. And I think to myself, ooh, if so-and-so is there, I really want to reconnect with them. I really want to open another lane of conversation. Maybe it's learning more about a particular industry or organization, or maybe you're looking for referral partners. Like as a realtor, maybe I'm going in thinking I really need a new organization person, or I really need a new staging person to put into my mix. When you have a goal, you stop wandering about, you stop thinking about yourself feeling uncomfortable, and you start networking with more intention.
Okay, so now we're going to talk about entering the networking event, right? So one of the strategies could be to arrive early. Um, I need to practice this one, you guys. So this is going to be do what I say, not what I do. If something starts at noon, I want to arrive at noon. I don't want to arrive before or after, just on the nose. But when I do get to an event early, I do feel more relaxed, more prepared, more composed. So when you arrive early, you're not walking in to establish circles and conversations. Like everybody's not already chit chatting with someone. You actually help to create them. It gives you an opportunity to meet the host, introduce yourself to other people who arrive early, and settle into the room before it gets crowded. Sometimes I like picking my seat because, if they have those darn circle tables, then I can make sure I choose a seat that faces forward. Or if I know that the group does like round robin introduction of yourself, I want to sit on a table on the perimeter so I don't have to like turn 16 different directions as I'm trying to introduce myself. And then one of my favorite networking tips is to simply talk to the host. So I know I said it a minute ago, but it is a nice opportunity to understand how the organization got started, maybe how many people they're expecting, what the agenda is for that day. If it's an event that you haven't been to very often, or even if it is one that you go to often, maybe, you get the inside scoop before you're all seated. Hosts are also connectors by nature. They know who's in the room and often know exactly who you should meet. Let them know what you're looking for, a perfect referral for you, and they may say, oh, when so-and-so gets here, I can introduce you to them. And that would be a huge benefit. Just chatting with the host, making that connection, and, letting them know what you need so that when people do start to arrive, you're the person that gets started. And then also, I do love bopping from person to person as they come in, or maybe you really get into a great conversation with somebody. And then there's nothing better when somebody new walks in the room and you can tell that they're feeling a little intimidated and you can invite them into the group. However, if you are like me and you arrive on time or 2 minutes late, you may feel awkward entering those conversations that have already started. So you walk in, you see the groups they're already talking, and you immediately assume that if you walk up, you're going to be interrupting their conversation. And then you just like maybe look at your phone or you're awkward, but just know that the groups aren't closed. Just look for open circles. So look for people that are making eye contact with you in the room. Look for groups that are in three instead of like an intense one-to-one conversation. Most networking groups are a lot more welcoming than we think. In fact, this makes me think of recently I was at a networking event and I was kind of there. I was there more of in a social capacity than a networking capacity. But towards the end, I was like, well, I'm here. I should really take advantage of this. So I stood up and I entered one of the groups and I was like, hey, I'm here to network, and like, kind of made a joke of it. And the other people kind of laughed. And then I realized as I was standing there, I was standing in a group of 5 people with different colored name tags than me, indicating they were guests to the event. And I was like, oh, you guys are all guests. Well, what you would expect on this morning, you would see me and you would see this and you would see that. It really broke the ice for the conversation, and everybody just like you could almost just feel everybody just let their guard down. Like at first it was like, who's this person joining our group? And then as soon as I got going, they were there for it and they were happy that I had joined the group, and everybody's very welcoming usually, and we're all in that same mindset like this is going to be awkward, but I want to promote my business and I want to see if I can find some great referrals. So keep that in
Yeah.
mind. You can say, hi, do you mind if I join you? You can have the body language that you look open and willing to have a conversation about just about anything. And I think you'll find people are a lot more open than we put in our heads or than we make it up to be.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that everybody's there for the same reason. You're all there to talk to people. You're not there to be cliquish with your little friends or anything. Everybody's there to
Yep.
network. So I went to a dinner actually that they were sharing information, and so it wasn't necessarily networking, but you came in and everybody was having drinks first before we sat down for dinner, and I knew nobody in the room, not one person.
That's my favorite.
Right? And so I walk in, of course I went to the bar, right? Got a little bubbly, and then I turn around and there was basically two groups of people that were socializing. There was one group that was men and women, and they looked like they were having like a legit business conversation. Like they were talking about something, you know. And then there was a group of women that were all talking about, I think they were talking about like their kids' sports or something, like nothing intense, right? And so I
Yeah.
kind of looked really quickly, and then I was like, well, I can't just stand here because then I'll look awkward and feel dumb. And then it's just going to get worse and worse and worse. And then I'm going to get nervous. And then that's going to be stupid. So I
Well,
just
and
kind of
also,
looked.
I don't want to stand there and I don't want people to start to have pity on me.
Right. Like I don't want to look like the awkward
Avoid the
fool
pity.
standing there.
Right.
Yeah. So I just kind of looked at the group of women that were talking about their kids' sports, and I was like, well, I hope you don't mind if I just come join you over here in whatever we're talking about. And they all just kind of laughed, and then, of course, included me in the conversation. And it was totally fine. So, yeah. And I actually made a friend that night, which is funny because we ended up sitting next to each other at dinner, exchanging contact information. I've referred her business, like, so
Oh,
it's
cool.
funny what comes from the most random things, but everybody feels the same way going in these events. And I think that's really important, because once the conversation starts, don't overcomplicate it. Most people rely on, so what do you do? Or where are you from? Or tell me about your business, or, all those kind of normal questions. I mean, they aren't bad questions. They're usually create predictable answers. But another thing you could ask instead is maybe more of a conversation starter is like, what brought you here tonight? Or what are you excited about right now in your business? Or what kinds of people or referral connections are you hoping to meet or make? Those questions tend to create real conversation instead of just rehearsed responses like our power statements. Remember, listening to somebody as they answer the question is so much more important than thinking about your next question or thinking about what you're going to add to the conversation, because people can tell when you're listening and people can tell when you're not listening. So that's super important.
I think that that I wrote a book about networking. It's called
I
Networking Your
do.
Way to the Big Stage, in case anybody hasn't heard about that. But in there is a whole chapter on body language. If you're not, and active listening, like if you're not showing interest, if you're not asking follow-up questions, hands down, body language open, nodding your head, those kind of things, make sure you are being a good listener, because I think we lose, half of what the person says because we're so much anticipating how we're going to reply.
Yes, 100%. And you can tell when somebody is like already thinking about what they want to share, like their story about what you're talking about before
Uh-huh.
you even finish talking. You can tell, and you're like, you're not
Mm-hmm.
even listening. You're not even actually like listening to me. Yeah. I mean, one skill that really separates experienced networkers from everyone else is knowing how to gracefully move on, is what I'd like to say. So, how to move through the room gracefully. Like you have a conversation and then you have to get out of that conversation, right? And move on to another one. Some people, when they go
Yes.
networking, they get way too comfortable in a conversation and they never leave that person. And it's not going to help you expand your network if that's what you're doing. So, knowing how to leave that conversation gracefully, I think is one of the most critical skills in a networking event, okay? The other part of that though is people who bounce too quickly. Like you don't want to bounce too quickly, okay? Because then it's like you're dropping your business card and running, and nobody likes that. You didn't get any connection. We didn't have any like similar experiences or paths or anything
Well,
to
you don't
like,
even have a chance to leave an impression, really, other
right,
than here's my card. Bye. Like,
bye. Yeah, no. You can't do
It makes
that.
me think of a server who comes by. Like we recently got waited on. This server basically like drove by and took our order. She just like quick wrote down whatever we wanted, and then she dropped the food off and immediately went to the next table to say something to them. And then she came by and picked up our plates as she was picking up plates from other tables.
Oh, yeah.
Like, what were we supposed to tip on? Of course we
Right.
tipped, but I'm like,
Right.
you didn't
Right.
even have a conversation with us. You didn't even ask us, like, are we from out of town? Or we were, but there was no conversation. There was no relationship built. Like, what am I even tipping on? Literally, I tipped because she brought me my food and took the plates away. There was no warm, fuzzy feeling.
She didn't make me feel warm and fuzzy.
No.
Yeah, I do think that is a critical skill, and a lot of people have a hard time with it. You
Yeah.
know when the conversation is dying down. Like, you know when the time is that you should probably leave. But the question is, how do you do it, right? So, one thing that I like to do is go, oh my gosh, well, I don't want to take up your whole night, or I don't want to take up your whole day. I know there's plenty of people you probably want to connect with. So I'm going to go over here, and I just kind of do that and leave. I kind of use that as I'm trying to be nice to you and not take up all your
Yes.
time with my conversation. So I'm going to go over here now. I just kind of call it what it is, because if you try and phase out of a conversation without calling a spade, in my opinion, in these networking events, it's going to be, you're going to wait and wait for the right opportunity. It's never going to happen. And you're going to spend the whole time talking to the same person, or you're going to end up leaving abruptly because you don't know what else to say. And so I like to just say, well, I don't want to take up all your time, but I did want to connect with you. And I look forward to connecting with you again in whatever way, that you guys talked about. But I'm going to go flit over here and do that, So that's kind of what I do. But I mean, what do you do to exit out of something?
Well, lots of times, I mean, you can tell sometimes when you're in the wrong circle. Have you ever had that feeling where like people are talking, you're like, this definitely never will apply to me?
Yes.
Just my sneeze.
Yes,
Okay.
Absolutely. You can be in that group and you're like, no. Yeah.
So I always just say, well, networking is the name of the game. So I'm going to go say hi to a couple of other people, and then they're always like, oh, yeah, no problem. Everybody's great.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that there's no problem with that. But one of the best ways, well, one time I can think of that's coming to my mind very clearly is I was in one of those circles where I was like, oh, wow, I gotta get out of this. And so I was thinking how I wanted to do it. And then I remembered that I wanted to connect these two people. So, and it was somebody from the group and they were checked out of the conversation too. So I was like, hey, actually, do you guys mind if I take Sally over here to introduce her to Sarah? And they're like, oh yeah, no problem. So then that's a great way to do it if you're going to connect a couple of people.
Mm-hmm. I like that one.
And I actually love when you do find like a common interest, and then you realize how you can connect them to somebody else in the room. I was talking to somebody at, again, a networking event recently. I feel like everything I say in my life is I was listening to a podcast and I heard blah, blah, blah. Now on the podcast, it's always like I was at a networking event and this is what happened.
It's so
but
true.
I ended up talking to somebody and they were saying how they were new to the area and they were looking for more networking opportunities and all these things. And I was like, oh my gosh, let me introduce you to the person who is hosting this event. And then at a different networking event, I introduced one person to three people. And that person ended up liking me or sending me a friend request on Facebook. And we've, talked since then. But I thought it was, first of all, I just get so much pleasure off of connecting people. I know we've talked about that before. So nothing lights me up more than to be like, oh, you know who you need to know? But it also helps you to leave a lasting impression. That is one of the fastest ways to become a memorable person in that room. This lady, Katie, she'll never forget who I am because I introduced her to a couple of people and then I told her in the next day or two, I will send an email connecting you with another person. And I did. So that's another way to become memorable. When you offer to do something, when you offer to connect somebody, or you offer something else, make sure you follow through with that and build that trust. And it's often in that follow-up where the real value starts to accumulate and they want to do things, with you, or what is that theory or whatever, where you feel like you owe somebody something, some kind of reciprocation.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, I don't want anybody to feel like they owe me anything, but that's just human nature. When somebody does something kind for you, you want to kind of repay that kindness. So become a connector, follow up with people, personalize them based on what you guys talked about, and then
Mhm.
just stay connected. So when you see them at future events, say hi, comment on their stuff on Facebook or Instagram, or attend an event that they're hosting because you clearly like the person.
If working a room feels intimidating, I would say remember this: you do not need to impress everyone, and you do not need to meet everyone. And you
Right.
definitely do not need to become someone you're not. I think that's really important because I think a lot of people go into a networking event thinking that they have to be a certain person. And it's typically probably not who they really are.
Well, and we just talked about in the last episode, people are seeking authenticity.
Hmm.
That they're not looking for, what AI told you should say. Just
Right.
say something from the heart that makes sense.
I think that, I know I can tell when somebody's just being them and when somebody's being
Mhm.
like a different version of
Er,
themselves.
er, er,
Yeah,
er.
like a more proper, like a more proper professional. I'm in professional mode, and you're just not going to get the same level of connection. So set one simple goal. How many people are you going to talk to, or what kind of referral connections are you going to make? Stay curious, learn about people. I mean, that's the fun part. You get to learn about
I think
people.
so too.
And then focus on connection instead of performing. Okay. This isn't really about you, it's about you connecting with others. Right. And confidence is going to grow through repetition. So you got to
Yeah.
continue to go to networking events. I mean, if that's not the theme of this entire podcast, I'm not sure what it is. But you've got to
Yeah.
continue to go to different types of networking events over and over and over. So you figure out what you like. You also get to meet amazing people. You get better at the way you present yourself. I mean, it's just a win-win. You just got to keep going.
Right. And that's how that confidence kind of grows. Speaking on the note of staying curious, I love that this gentleman, Don and I attended an event on Monday night. And this gentleman walked up to us, and it was mostly women. So I'm sure there were just a couple of guys, and I'm sure they were feeling a little out of place. And so this one guy, though, he had so much confidence. He just came up and he just started chit-chatting with us. And he was working it between Donna and I. I was really proud of him, quite honestly, because he's like, "So what do you do?" And then Donna answered what she did. And then, we talked a little bit about what he does. And then he's like, "What do you do?" And I said, "I'm a podcast manager." And he was like, "I have a podcast." I'm like, "Stop. What is your podcast about?" And then after talking to him about his podcast, it gave me a good idea for this podcast. So
Yeah.
it's kind of funny that, if you really are curious, I mean, he could have left the conversation after just asking Donna what she did. He didn't have to expand and go into more detail about what him and his wife's company was. And it was nice that he was curious about me. And then it really led to a very natural conversation. So I think that curiosity is what leads to those fun conversations and gets you out of what do you do? And it
Mhm.
gets you into where are categories that we could collaborate, or how could I add benefit to his business, that kind of thing. So
Yeah.
confidence definitely grows through repetition, attending the events, and all the things that Donna just said.
And like you
And remember,
mentioned,
oh,
oh,
go ahead.
sorry. Like you mentioned, you can learn something or you can like hear something that gives you a new thought in your own
Yeah.
business, maybe in your marketing or maybe in a system or maybe in a workflow that you have. And it can kind of, for me, I hear things and I'm always like, wait, how could I maybe implement something like that in my business? Or would this be a good fit for me to try? And I mean, literally any great idea has probably come from a networking event.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I think so. I feel like networking is like the sister to AI. It kind of gets the creative juices going and gets you
Yes.
thinking like, oh, okay. Sometimes you see somebody really intense in their business. You're like, I could be more intense in my business. Or you hear somebody saying, I need to hire somebody that's more detail oriented because I am not detail oriented. And you can be like,
Right.
oh, I'm very thankful I am detail oriented. Or yeah, I wonder who they end up hiring. Maybe it'd be a good fit for me too. Maybe it's a VA or something. So lots of grounds for common connection for sure. But remember, the room isn't filled with strangers that you need to impress. It's just filled with people you simply haven't met yet. So walk in with purpose, look for approachable openings. We talked about those circles that, maybe people are talking, but like you said, Donna, there was one a little bit more serious, one a little bit more fun. You kind
Hmm.
of jumped into that one because felt a little bit more natural. Ask those thoughtful questions, be curious, listen carefully. Please, you guys, if you don't know how to do that, get my book. Give yourself a couple pointers. That's what working a room with confidence actually looks like. So we're ready for this week's networking mode on tip. At your next event, give yourself a 3-conversation challenge. Start one conversation with someone standing alone, join one group conversation, reconnect with one person you already know. You don't need to sell anything. You don't need to hand out every business card that you bring with you. Your only goal is to be curious, present, and intentional. Networking mode on.
Before your next networking event, write down 3 people you'd like to meet or 3 types of connections you would like to make. Then send us a quick text using the link in the show notes and tell us what event you're attending and what your networking goal is. Let's keep building those powerful links together. You've been hanging out in the Link Up Lounge, your lounge for turning one link into endless opportunities.
Now it's your turn. Go make a powerful link today.
Networking mode on.